Hello folks. In this session we're going to cover the CASELODE Payroll System. We'll go in and start in the control file. In page 1 of the control file you have the firm's name and address, federal and state IDs, whether or not you're interfaced to our General Ledger module, the year for the payroll, the state you want it to default to, and your deduction frequency. In the second tab you have percentages for FICA and Medicare, both on the employee and employer side, your maximum FICA wages, your state unemployment percentage and maximum wages, and your federal unemployment and maximum wages, the format that you want the checks in. In this tab you have the general ledger numbers that you want to interface back into for all of your payroll, such as your gross pay, your withholdings, your voluntary deductions, your employer's expense, etc. And in the next tab you have up to 16 voluntary deductions, and you want to tell the system where to post the credits for those deductions. Once you have that set up, you need to set up your voluntary deductions themselves. And you do that by going into this screen and simply checking the deductions that you wish to use and giving it a title to show on reports and on the employee check stubs. And if you'll notice, in our case we have a 401k plan and United Way. You need to set up your state and federal tax tables. The federal tax table looks exactly like the government Circular E or Publication 15. You specify your withholding allowances right out of their table, and you go to Annual Table 7 and specify your tax brackets for single and your tax brackets for married. And these are just lifted right out of the pages of the Circular E. Very, very simple process. Unfortunately, you have to change it about once a year, obviously. And then you'll be setting up your employees. On the employees, you can use any number you like, and then you fill in the employee's name and address and the state that they're going to be taxed in. Occasionally we have firms that are right on a borderline. They may have employees in one state working in another. So you have to specify that, and whether or not the state is calling for married or single, phone, social security number, date of birth, when they were hired. You have the pay type, salary or hourly. Pay frequency is the frequency that your firm runs the payroll. If it's a salaried employee, you're going to specify the per pay period gross. If it's an hourly employee, you're going to specify an hourly rate. And then you specify the marital status, the number of federal exemptions, the number of state exemptions or local, if you're in a municipality that has local taxes. You can specify either positive or negative additional taxes over and above what the tables call for. You have the ability to actually override what the tables call for. And you have the ability to have someone on direct deposit or not. You also have the ability to set up annual vacation, sick, and personal hours that the employee qualifies for. And then when you enter your payroll, if you specify the type of pay the employee is getting, it'll run a balance on the stub showing the amount or the number of hours that they have left. On this page 4, you specify the voluntary deductions for this employee. And this deduction, number 1, happens to be a 401k. So we are specifying here that it's exempt from federal and state taxes, whereas the United Way deduction is not exempt. It's just coming out of net pay. You can either do a voluntary deduction as a flat amount or as a percentage of gross. And for this specific employee, you're telling it where to post to back in the general ledger. And then the last page has some contact information for this employee. It may be a spouse or parents or what have you. And you have the ability to keep up with some employee history for promotions, etc. So once your employees are set up, you simply go into do a payroll, and you can just key everybody through pay time entry. But this feature, automatic payroll, is a quick way to automatically enter everybody that's salaried. It only works on salaried employees. So you'll tell it to automatically pay your semi-monthly people and to run it, and it says it completed that process. Once you go into pay time entry, it's evident that it created a pay record for salaried people. But if you have any hourly people, you would simply come up here and add and pick your hourly employee and tab over and tell it the number of hours. So Jane's going to make 80 hours regular time, and we'll say 5 hours overtime. So you're able to see right during the entry of the record what the net pay is going to be, what the taxes and deductions amount to, and the taxable gross, how much of it is SUTA and FUTA, which obviously does not come out of the employee's record, it's paid for by the firm, but the FICA and Medicare and federal and state withholdings. And if you look at a record of somebody that maybe has a 401k, you'll notice that you're paying them $2,000, but you've got a $50 401k deduction, so your federal and state gross is actually reduced by that amount, so that $50 did not go through the tax calculation. Then you've got your voluntary deductions. So once you have everybody in, you actually go into your reports, go into your current pay register, tell it you're paying all employees, and you'll see a pay register separated by the yellow borders for each employee. So this employee's actually netting out $14.93, and then the next one and the next one is 3 per page. And then on the last page, you see totals for everybody, and then you see a deposit summary that actually matches the form that you go online to deposit your taxes. So much for state, and then when you're on the Fed EFTPS system, they're asking for the payment amount, how much is Social Security, how much is Medicare, and how much is federal tax withholding. So everything's pretty much prepared for you. But you want to verify that before you go further, and then you want to run the general ledger distribution just to make certain that everything looks good there, and the main goal to check here is to be sure that everything balances to 0, because your goal is to post an equal amount of debits and credits to the general ledger. Once those reports are printed and verified, you simply come in and print your checks. And we're going to run these checks as of 02/28/13 and tell it to assign the check date. Everybody's selected to get paid, and then we'll come in and put the beginning check number, tell it to assign check numbers, tells you how many to have in the printer, and then we'll take a look at the check on the screen. This shows regular hours. This particular employee is salaried, so we didn't enter any hours, but it shows the taxes current, taxes year to date, earnings current, and earnings year to date, and net. And then the voluntary deductions, so much current, so much year to date. And then it shows the check itself going to the employee, and then a bottom stub, which is just like the top stub. If you have employees that are on direct deposit, then you would run a direct deposit voucher, which is a document similar to a check, but you just run it on plain paper. And then you run your check register, you can run a check register for the current period only or for any past period by specifying the check dates. So we had 4 checks this period. They were all regular checks, and our net grand total is $64,1860. And then we will post our payroll. Once you post the payroll, it's being posted to the general ledger and to the employee file, because the system tracks detailed earnings all year long, and that's what it produces the W-2s and the quarterly reports from. And once you do your post, you simply come in and you can do a year-to-date register. And we recommend that you do the year-to-date register each and every pay period. And you can do 941 supplements. You can do a payroll earnings report. If I wanted to see everything this person had earned from 01/01/13 to 02/28/13, I can do one or all employees. And in this case, I've got Robert Roberts, and it shows me payday by payday what the gross was, the taxes, the voluntary deductions, and the net pay. And then the next employee and the next employee. Occasionally you'll have somebody applying for unemployment, and you'll have to supply this type of information to the Employment Security Commission. You also have the ability to do annual W-2 statements, and we allow you to specify which of the 16 voluntary deductions that you want to add or subtract from certain boxes, or certain deductions that you want to print in box 12 with the appropriate code from the W-2 instruction manual. You can go in at any point and do an earnings history on an employee, and it'll show you from the oldest check down to the most current check. Here's the one that was produced in this cycle. So all of the detail is in the system. Occasionally you will have to void a payroll check, and you will go into payroll and payday processing and voids. Somebody may have lost a check and you need to void it. So we'll go down here to the one of the ones that we just did, and tell it we want to void it on 02/28/13, and just simply say void that entry. And it voids it in the employee file, and it voids it in the general ledger as well. And if we go back into the employee file, we will see that it's been deducted out of their file. So that adjusts it for earnings purposes. So the payroll system is very straightforward. We have roughly 125 or so firms using the payroll module. And if we can answer any questions for you or help in any way, please give us a call. Morningstar Technology and CASELODE, 864-346-4486. Thank you.